The third point of the 4-point programme is managing thoughts, feelings and behaviour. So let's listen to a 15-minute lecture on this important topic by Dr. Mikla Bishop.
The third aspect of SMART for some people is the most important because it is the way that they learn how to manage their emotional upsets. The focus is on problem solving, and when you can't solve the problem coping. And almost everybody who goes to SMART learns how to do an ABC. And in this section of the talk, and then the one that follows the break, I'm going to kind of go through a couple of ABCs because that's so important for point 3. There are other kinds of techniques, role-playing, brainstorming, to mention 2, but the ABC is the one that most people seem to latch onto and find most helpful. Now, when you're doing an ABC on an emotional problem, it's important to make a distinction between what we mean by consequences and consequences. For many people, consequences are the DWI, the fact that their family doesn't live with them any longer, or that they don't have a checking account. They've gone bankrupt because they've spent it all at the casino. So the consequences for them and they think of consequences as something like that. Now you'll notice that I've put the C in the middle of this flip chart. It's taken me, like Joe, about 8 years. I think, Joe, it's taken me about 12 years to figure out how to do an ABC so I don't get it completely bobbled up. And I think anybody who's ever tried to go up to a board or do an ABC on a flip chart knows that suddenly there's not enough room and what happened and you're confused. And by the way, the very best thing to do, and everybody in New York now has made a promise to himself or herself and has carried through with this, is to get up and try to do one or do something at the board. Cost-benefit analysis, hierarchy of values, or some kind of exercise like that. Just once during the meeting, get off your seat and get up, which, by the way, helps focus a meeting. If you find the meeting really starting to drift, getting up and going to the board, simply doing that, suddenly takes people out of this too much crosstalk. But in any case, the C's in the middle. And what's the A? Well, the A, how did this happen? Well, I started to drink, right? And of course, I went on because I said, there's a B's here, I said something like what?
I can't stop.
Right, I can't stop. It won't matter. What's the point, right, of having just one, or beep it. In any case, if we back up in time, and one of the things I'm going to be talking about during the entirety of this presentation and the next presentation is the importance for addictions of 2 concepts. One, time, which is the thing that makes you and I different from the rest of the organisms on the planet. They're sensitive to time in the sense that some of the birds are already flying south, but they don't think about it. They're not saying, oh my God, I probably started too late, we'll never make it to Mexico in time, you know. I'll probably break a wing along the way. No, you and I are very aware that we exist in time and we talk about it all the time. So some of you woke up in the morning and thought, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that last night. You know, there I did it again, I opened my mouth, etc. So if we go back in time, and let's make this A the C that you started to drink. And we'll assume that that was because you were feeling What? Anxious, angry. I don't know. Or maybe anxious. Or maybe you were just anticipating that you were going to feel anxious. So you decided, I better take a Vicodin or something, just in case, because I can't stand feeling anxious. Again, notice that you're really trying to take care of yourself in time. You're trying to make sure half an hour from now, which is why I had the coffee, right? I was probably waking up already, but I got to make sure that I'm bright and, cheery. Okay. And you said something to cause you to start to drink. What did you say about this? Right. I can't stand it. What else?
Awful.
Right. It's awful. Can't stand it. Excuse me? Yes, but that's a rational belief. It will help you in the short run. No, but let us follow that, because when you say it will help, a drink will help, that the irrational part is hiding underneath. And it will have no medium or long-term consequences. Meaning I can take care of myself over the next hour and somehow get away with or avoid the consequences over hour 2, 3, and the next week and the next month. And if that worked, by the way, I wouldn't have a job. Right? So it doesn't work. Okay, now let's take this A and back up in time, right? Because you got angry about something. And the A now has become a new C. You're angry. Now, how did you get angry? What made you angry? Who?
My ex-wife talked to me, like the example that Joe used.
Said something to me on the phone, right? And you said what to yourself? I shouldn't have to deal with this, right?
He has no right to do that.
Right. It's not fair. Poor me, right? Most of us who've had problems with addictions know that you can get caught on one of the two horns, right? Self-pity or self-entitlement, right? If you get off the phone and you've screwed her, whatever, really well, your ex-wife, you may go, yes. And of course, all of Miller High Life beer commercials are based on that. It's Miller time. We just got the contract. We just won the swimming meet. It's Miller time. And all of champagne ads. You feel good because your baby boy was just born. But you should feel better. That's not enough. You should feel better. So the focus of the third point is to manage this sequence, this rolling chain over time. So when you are standing here thinking it's not fair, you're already anticipating and beginning to feel sorry for yourself, angry, and you're starting to think, something will help, right? You've been there before. So you start to drink, and then you tell yourself it won't matter, beep it, and you keep on, and you get these consequences. But for new folks, and even some of our old hands, this is the only consequences they think of. They don't think about that, wait a minute, this was a consequence of this, and the anger was a consequence of the way I initially responded to the situation, right? Now, imagine for a moment 50,000 people in a soccer stadium, right? 25,000 on one side, 25,000 on the other side, and this little leather ball goes into a net. And 25,000 people, yay! They start screaming and, oh my God, yes, yeah. They hug each other and they pat each other. And the other side, they sit there muttering, let's get rid of the umpire. We need a new kicker. What's the matter? How is this possible? It's the same activating event, right? But let's assume that you're on the other side of the stadium. My goals and values are different from your goals and values. And therefore, the meaning I give to the event is very different to the meaning that he gives to the events. And as a result, we have very different feelings, right? And we behave differently. And of course, we tell ourselves different things, right? This is part one. This is the diagnostic part, right? We all love it. We all are narcissistic to some extent, and we want to understand how we tick. Why did we do that? Joe said that somebody went through all sorts of handstands. Why? Because he wanted to understand why he relapsed. The second part, however, is really the most important part, right? Because if you just do the ABCs, you're just rehearsing your baloney. You have to do something about the baloney. So if you're saying, I shouldn't have to deal with this, it's not fair, you better do something to challenge that, because that's wacky, right? I hope you... No. Okay, so that's where the D comes in, right? And the important part, and that's why you need two flip charts, by the way. You can do an ABC on one, but you can't fit the D and the E in. It's not possible. Or a big chalkboard. Disputes are always questions, right? Might be a question like, why should life always be fair? I mean, it's obvious, right? For a prince like me, it should be fair. I'm special. But am I special or just different? Where's the evidence that my ex-wife should behave any differently than the way she's always behaved? That's one of the reasons we parted. Why am I upsetting myself again? Okay, so those are always questions. And then we move on to the E, right? Which is more effective thoughts, often counter statements, feelings, and we'll come back to that in a moment, and behaviors. So if you're feeling sorry for yourself because life is treating you badly, which it may be, bad things really may be happening to yourself, what could you say that might help? One of the people in our groups about 2 months ago said, I think I finally got it. And somebody else asked, what's that? And he said, the law averages. And somebody said, what's that? On average, it's better. Some days suck. Other days half suck. And some days are good. But on average, it's better. And that helps, right? If you are having a bad day, to remember, wait a minute, it's not all bad. Or if you're in a relationship and you and your partner are having a bad day, to remember there are some reasons why it's worthwhile working to love her or him, right? So that may help. Feelings. What could you feel instead of angry? Addictions are designed primarily to change how we feel in time. We want to feel better fast. And by the way, everything you're trying to teach people doesn't work as fast, isn't as easy, and doesn't always work. That's in contrast to Jack Daniels, which is quicker, right? Easier, and always works. Not well over the time, right? But very well in the very short run. So you coordinators are really struggling. And one reason it seems to me to stay involved is what Joe just said. For 8 years, he's going to meetings, and Joe has run more meetings than everybody in this room combined. And he's scratching his head, and he knows, because Joe, I've been there with other things. You know you're seeing something right in front of your head, in front of your eyes, but you can't quite figure that out. So it makes running meetings interesting, and of course also helpful. I always leave a meeting feeling as if that was worth it to me. It may have been also worth it to other people, but that was worth it to me. I'm glad I did that. So we're trying to change the way we feel, and then of course we're trying to change our behavior.